You've spent your whole life being told you're lazy, that you just need to try harder, that if you really cared, you'd follow through. And the worst part is, you believed it. Because how else do you explain why some days you can hyper-focus for 8 hours straight on something that fascinates you, but you can't make yourself do 15 minutes of something boring but necessary? How do you explain why your brain feels like it's running on fumes by 2 in the afternoon, even though you slept fine? How do you explain the guilt that sits in your chest when you finally crash after pushing yourself with coffee, deadlines, and sheer panic, only to wake up the next day and do it all over again? Here's what nobody tells you clearly enough. It's not about willpower. It's about dopamine. And the way your brain handles dopamine is fundamentally different from what most people experience. Not broken, not defective, just different. And that difference creates a pattern that's been running your life without you even realizing it. If this already feels familiar, if you're nodding along because you've lived this exact cycle, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This channel is built for people who think differently, who've spent years trying to fit into systems that weren't designed for how their minds actually work. And if you want to see more content that explains the invisible parts of neurodivergence without the clinical jargon, leave a like so I know this is resonating. Let me paint you a picture. You wake up. There's something you need to do. Something important. Maybe it's a work project. Maybe it's paying a bill. Maybe it's just calling to make a doctor's appointment. You know it matters. You know it needs to get done. But when you sit down to do it, your brain feels like it's moving through wet concrete. There's no energy, no momentum. It's not that you don't care. It's that your brain isn't giving you the neurochemical fuel to even start. So you wait. You scroll. You do something, anything else. Not because you want to avoid the task, but because your brain is literally searching for something that will create enough stimulation to get the engine running. Then the deadline hits. Suddenly, panic floods your system. Adrenaline kicks in. Your heart rate spikes. And just like that, your brain lights up. Now you can focus. Now you can work. You finish the thing in 2 hours that you'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. And it feels like proof that you're just bad at managing your time. But that's not what happened. What happened is your brain finally got the neurochemical kick it needed to function. Panic became your fuel. Urgency became your prescription. And you didn't choose that. Your brain did. This is the dopamine problem no one explains clearly. Dopamine isn't just the feel-good chemical. It's the chemical that makes your brain decide something is worth doing. It's the signal that says this action has value. This is important. Pay attention to this. For most people, the brain releases dopamine pretty reliably in response to everyday tasks, goals, and structure. Their brains say, okay, this matters, let's engage. But if you have ADHD or certain types of neurodivergence, your brain doesn't produce or regulate dopamine the same way. The signal is weaker. The reward system is quieter. So the things that feel naturally motivating to other people feel like trying to run a car on an empty tank for you. And here's where it gets tricky. You learn, over years, how to compensate. You learn that stress works. Panic works. Novelty works. Hyperfocus on something interesting works. So you build your entire life around these artificial sources of dopamine. You wait until the last minute because that's when your brain finally cooperates. You jump from project to project because new things give you that initial spark. You drink coffee all day because it gives you just enough stimulation to keep moving. You stay up late because nighttime feels like the only time your brain is actually awake. And it works. Kind of. Until it doesn't. Because here's what nobody warns you about. Those artificial dopamine sources come with a cost. Every time you rely on panic to get something done, you're flooding your system with stress hormones. Every time you push through on caffeine and willpower, you're borrowing energy you don't actually have. Every time you hyperfocus for 6 hours without eating or moving, you're draining your reserves. And your brain keeps score. The crash always comes. The exhaustion always hits. And when it does, you don't just feel tired. You feel broken. You feel like a failure. Because you can't understand why something that worked yesterday doesn't work today. This is the cycle. Push, crash, guilt, repeat. And the guilt is the worst part. Because when you crash, when you can't focus, when you can't make yourself do the simplest thing, it feels like moral failure. It feels like weakness. It feels like if you were just a better person, just more disciplined, just more together, you'd be able to function like everyone else. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is your brain is running out of dopamine, running out of fuel, and no amount of self-hatred is going to fix a neurochemical issue. Let me give you an example that might hit home. You're at work. You've got a task in front of you. It's boring but necessary. You sit down. You open the document. And your brain just won't. It's like there's a wall between you and the task. So you try harder. You tell yourself to focus. You close all the tabs. You put your phone away. And still, nothing. Meanwhile, someone messages you about something completely unrelated but interesting. And suddenly your brain is fully online. You're engaged. You're thinking clearly. You're writing paragraphs of response without even trying. It's not that you can't focus. It's that your brain will only focus on things that generate enough dopamine to make it worth the effort. And here's what makes it even more confusing. The things that generate dopamine for you aren't always the things that should matter. You can spend 3 hours researching something random that caught your interest and feel completely energized. But you can't spend 15 minutes on something that's actually urgent and necessary. It's not a choice. It's not laziness. It's your brain's reward system operating on a different frequency. The dopamine hits come from novelty, from interest, from urgency, from intensity, not from routine, not from obligation, not from the steady, boring, necessary tasks that make up most of adult life. So you learn to game the system. You create fake deadlines. You work in bursts. You rely on external pressure. And it works well enough that nobody notices. You get things done. You meet the deadlines. You look functional from the outside. But inside, you're running on empty. Inside, you're exhausted. Inside, you're wondering why something that feels easy for everyone else takes everything you have. The answer is simple, even if it's hard to accept. Your brain isn't producing the neurochemical scaffolding that makes tasks feel doable. Other people don't need a crisis to pay their bills on time. They don't need intense interest to focus on something boring. They don't need the adrenaline rush of a deadline to get started. Their brains give them baseline dopamine that says this is worth doing, and they just do it. Your brain doesn't. Your brain needs more. More stimulation, more urgency, more interest, more intensity. And when it doesn't get that, everything feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Here's the thing that changed everything for me when I finally understood it. It's not that you're doing life wrong. It's that you're doing life with a fundamentally different operating system, and nobody gave you the manual. You've been trying to run software designed for neurotypical brains on hardware that works differently, and then blaming yourself when it doesn't run smoothly. But the problem was never you. The problem was the mismatch. The problem was spending your whole life being told that the way your brain works is a personal failing instead of a neurological difference. When you understand that dopamine isn't just about feeling good, when you understand that it's the chemical that makes your brain assign value and priority to tasks, everything starts to make sense. The reason you can't just do something boring isn't because you're weak. It's because your brain isn't getting the signal that says this is worth your energy. The reason you need urgency and panic isn't because you're a procrastinator. It's because that's one of the few things that reliably spikes your dopamine high enough to engage your focus. The reason you hyper-focus on things that interest you isn't because you're avoiding responsibility. It's because interest is one of the most powerful dopamine generators your brain has access to. And the exhaustion, the crashes, the guilt, all of it makes sense when you realize you've been trying to force a dopamine-deficient brain to function like a neurotypical one. You've been relying on artificial sources of stimulation because those are the only tools you had. And those tools work, but they're not sustainable. They drain you. They wear you down. They create a cycle where you're always borrowing from tomorrow to get through today. So what do you do with this information? First, you stop blaming yourself. Seriously, the guilt you've been carrying isn't serving you. It's just another weight on a system that's already overloaded. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not less than. Your brain just works differently, and you've been trying to survive in a world that doesn't accommodate that difference. That's not your fault. Second, you start working with your brain instead of against it. If urgency helps you focus, create structure around that. If novelty keeps you engaged, build variation into your routines. If hyperfocus is your superpower, protect it and use it strategically. You don't have to fix yourself. You have to understand yourself, and then build a life that actually fits how your brain operates. Third, you stop using panic and stress as your primary fuel source. I know it works. I know it's reliable, but it's not sustainable. And every time you flood your system with adrenaline to get through a task, you're teaching your brain that panic is the only way to function. There are other ways to increase dopamine. Movement, music, breaking tasks into smaller chunks, Pairing boring tasks with something stimulating. External accountability. Medication, if that's an option for you. You don't have to keep running yourself into the ground. And here's the last thing, the thing I wish someone had told me years ago. The way you experience the world, the way your brain lights up for certain things and shuts down for others, the way you need intensity and novelty and interest to feel alive, that's not a flaw. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's just how you're wired. And when you stop trying to be someone you're not, when you stop forcing yourself into systems that weren't built for you, you get to discover what's actually possible when you work with your brain instead of against it. You've spent so long thinking something was wrong with you, wondering why you couldn't just be normal, wondering why everything felt so much harder. But it was never about effort. It was never about discipline. It was never about wanting it badly enough. It was about dopamine. It was about a brain that processes reward and motivation differently. And now that you know, now that you can see the pattern, you get to choose what comes next. You get to stop fighting yourself. You get to start building a life that actually fits. And that changes everything.